Hi friends, welcome back to the Five Gyres Trash Academy. My name is Melissa Awayo and I'm the program director at Five Gyres. Today is Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. It's the 50th Earth Day and I'm so excited to celebrate it with all of you at home with our second Trash Academy lesson. Don't worry if you missed the first, you can always visit fivegyres.org to view old lessons and see what's ahead. On our last lesson, we took a journey through time and learned about the history of plastics. We learned about early forms of plastic like cellulose and bakelite. We discovered that plastic didn't really become a staple in our home until after World War II due to a surplus of material. And we identified that we are now producing an unmanageable amount of plastic with too many externalized costs. On today's lesson, we take a deeper look into some of those externalized costs as we explore the life cycle of plastic. Sorry, y'all, some technical difficulties on my end, but let's start from the beginning. So plastic is made from oil, which is a fossil fuel extracted from the earth. Fossil fuels were formed from the fossilized buried remains of plants and animals that lived millions of years ago, like this super cute triceratops. Oil is found in underground reservoirs and is primarily accessed by drilling on land or at sea. The fact that plastic is made from oil tends to really surprise people. Remember those externalized costs we were talking about? They start at the point of extraction. Drilling for oil and gas usually happens in environmental justice communities, which are populations or geographic locations in the US that experience disproportionate environmental harms and risks. Populations like low-income families and people of color are often exposed to toxic emissions and spills at these points of extraction. Once you extract the crude oil, it is transported to refineries through four main ways: via a supertanker, like what you just saw on the screen, a pipeline, train, or a truck to be transformed into plastic and usable fuels like gasoline and propane. That crude oil then goes to a processing facility called a refinery, which breaks down the crude oil. In addition to oil, the production of plastic requires the use of other additional types of natural resources like water and energy. And unfortunately, just like with extraction, a lot of these manufacturing plants are placed in environmental justice communities. The people within these communities are exposed to toxic chemicals from production and also to indirect source emissions from warehouses and heavy traffic from some of those trucks we referenced. These facilities are often next to rivers, which can get polluted and carry that pollution to the ocean or contaminate groundwater. This is a refinery in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This plant lies at the northern end of Louisiana's Cancer Alley, an 80-mile stretch along the Mississippi River with more than 100 petrochemical plants and refineries woven among the river's communities. Another nickname for the region is Petrochemical Corridor. After the extraction and refining process, plastic gets melted, cooled, and cut into small pellets, which we call NURDLES. NURDLES are tiny pellets, 2 to 5 millimeters in size, and are the starting point of plastic products. Oftentimes, chemicals such as flame retardants, UV stabilizers, and colorants are added during this process. Hidden cost: in the production and transportation of these tiny pellets, millions are washed down the drain or littered near the production plant and alongside transportation routes. In fact, if you take a look in most beaches, you'll be able to spot some of these NURDLES. These NURDLES or pellets get molded, shaped, filled, and placed into boxes to be shipped to stores for you to purchase and to bring home. Here's an example, and you can see a PET bottle, plastic number 1. Once these NURDLES get melted down to form everyday plastics, corporations then have to get these out into the market. Corporations spend marketing dollars to ensure maximum penetration in communities. They flood environmental justice communities with things like dollar stores where families feel that they can get their money's worth, emphasizing their product's value and convenience. A lot of that merchandise is pretty low quality and breaks while in use. Some of it is even toxic and may contain high levels of lead and other endocrine disruptors. So once a plastic item has been created, sold as a product, and used, it eventually becomes no longer usable. For some items, that process may take many years, but for other single-use items, that process doesn't take much time at all. Oftentimes, people use disposable plastic items for only minutes at a time. So what happens to that plastic item when we're all done using it? There are 3 possible routes that a plastic item can take once it has been used. Let's take a closer look at these 3 possible outcomes: landfills, recycling, and pollution. Let's start with pollution, since this is where most people think that their plastic is going. And apologies, another fun little lag here. So believe it or not, most of your plastic is actually not getting recycled. Let's actually go back 1 slide. Oh, this is fun. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Give me just 5 seconds here as I get caught up on my end. All right, so let's start with recycling, since most of us believe that's where most of our plastic goes, and we've been led to believe that recycling is a perfect solution. Recycling is when a waste material is broken down and turned into a new material. When we recycle a plastic item, we turn it into something new and use it again, which saves resources and prevents plastic from ending up in landfills or in our natural environment. Plastic is a unique material that can't always be completely recycled like glass or aluminum. A lot of the time, plastic is downcycled. This means that the plastic material is remade into something of lesser quality, like a plastic bottle being turned into a plastic bag. Recycling plastic can be difficult for all of those reasons and others. So how does recycling work? Most of you are familiar with the early part. A recycling truck comes and picks up your recyclables and takes them to a transfer station or recycling center. These plastics and recyclables all arrive mixed together, so everything has to be sorted. Plastic gets separated from glass, aluminum, and paper. Some facilities use people and some use high-tech machines to sort. These items then get sent to a baler, which you're seeing now, where it squeezes all that plastic into a single bale or block. The bale of plastic is sold and transferred to companies that will use it to make new products, products like carpets and clothes. But unfortunately, of the 8.3 billion metric tons that has been produced, 6.3 billion metric tons of that has become plastic waste. Only less than 9% of our plastic has been recycled. So this is a far from perfect system. A lot of it is actually ending up in the landfill. A landfill or dump is a place to dispose of waste materials by burying it and covering it over with soil. Landfills are a very common way to get rid of our waste. The majority of plastics end up in a landfill, even if you placed it in the recycling bin. We oftentimes call that wish cycling. As plastic sits in the landfill, slowly being compacted under layers of other junk, rainwater flows through the waste and absorbs any water-soluble compounds it contains. Some of those are highly toxic. Think about all the crazy things people throw into their garbage bins, like electronics and used oil. Mixed with that rainwater, this creates leachate, which can move into groundwater, soils, and streams, poisoning ecosystems, the plants, animals, and people that live in them. And who are the people living near landfills? You guessed it, low-income families and people of color. Depending on where you live, some plastic and trash might get sent to an incinerator before ending up in a landfill. What is an incinerator, you may ask? Incineration is a process where all trash, regardless if it's recyclable or toxic, is burned as a way of managing waste and providing a local source of energy. These industrial incinerators can provide steam-based power and energy for us to use, but at the cost of creating toxic air pollutions through emissions. In many countries, it has become popular to burn the waste, and the industry has even greenwashed this practice by saying the heat produced to generate either electricity or heat homes and calling it renewable. Incinerators are expensive and contribute to climate change by emitting CO2 and are often located in environmental justice communities. Notice the theme here? Even with all of these waste management systems in place, plastic pollution is one of the most prolific problems our planet faces today. Every year, millions of tons of plastic are produced, used, and then discarded. And much of that plastic is ending up in our oceans or as litter in our neighborhoods, cities, parks, forests, deserts, and mountains. The prevalence of microplastics in the ocean, along with acidification, kill the bottom of the food chain, which is a serious threat to biodiversity and the food chain as a whole. Here we can see how it's ending up in those gyres and how some of those animals are being impacted. Oh no, poor turtles. So by taking, oh, here we can see that food chain and how it's being impacted. By taking a closer look at the full life cycle of plastic, we can see that there are too many externalized costs and that certain communities have had to carry a disproportionate burden for our perceived convenience and over-reliance on this material. The incredible news is that organizations and individuals like you from all over the world are coming together to tackle this major issue from all sides. We are working to raise the voices of those frontline communities. We are fighting to create a world in which we can all enjoy clean air, clean water, clean soil, and a green future. What can companies, countries, and people like you and I do to work to build that world together? So, now that we've explored the full life cycle of plastic, we want to invite you all in honor of Earth Month to join us this Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific time for a community screening of The Story of Plastic, a documentary that takes a detailed look into the environmental damage and human rights abuses that occur throughout the life cycle of plastic. We'll also be hosting a panel with some of our incredible justice local leaders the following Thursday. Don't forget to visit 5gyres.org for more info, to view past lessons, and stay tuned for any future lessons. Hope to see you Friday and have an amazing Earth Day today and every day.